Penguin Random House Audio presents The Mother of All Things by Alexis Landau. Read for you by Cassandra Campbell and Jennifer Pickens. For my parents and my children. All has been consecrated. The creatures in the forest know this. The earth does, the seas do, the clouds know, as does the heart full of love. Strange, a priest would rob us of this knowledge and then empower himself with the ability to make holy what already was. Saint Catherine of Siena. If we keep talking about it in an idyllic way, as in many handbooks on motherhood, we will continue to feel alone and guilty when we come up against the frustrating aspects of being a mother. The task of a woman writer today is not to stop at the pleasures of the pregnant body, of birth, of bringing up children, but to delve truthfully into the darkest depth. Elena Ferrante, Frantumaglia.
Prologue. Sofia, Bulgaria, Vitosha Mountains, August 2019. Ava glanced up into the trees and caught sight of a figure crouched in the branches. Shrouded by the overcast night sky, his bulky form and large, uncouth hands betrayed him. "There!" Ava shouted, rising from Professor Nikitas's warm maternal lap. "He's at the top of that fir tree." The women moved with speed and force, breaking loose like startled crows. Through the woods and over the gushing streams they leapt from jagged rock to jagged rock. They flew toward him and climbed a great boulder that towered opposite the man's perch, and showered him with stones and sharp branches broken off from the trees, while others hurled their thyrsus staffs at him. The man shuddered just above their reach, the tree branch buckling beneath his weight. Breathlessly, they splintered more branches from pines, and with these wooden rods attempted to lever up the tree by prying the roots loose. Nikitas cried, "Women, make a circle around the trunk and grip it with your hands." A multitude of hands sprang from the darkness and shook the trunk with startling force. Blood sprouted from Ava's palms as she gripped the fir, shaking and tearing at it, panting and sweating. Torches crackled and encircled the tree, and the faces of the others blurred before her until the women became one woman filled with an ancient rage, spilling over into now. 1. Joshua Tree, California, March 2019. The unraveling started on their way into the desert. The freeway congested, shimmering with heat. Sam and Margot whining in the back seat of the car, a chorus of accusatory complaints, while Casper rolled calls about hiring a DP. Given the first-time director, the Russian financiers wanted someone older and more established, someone like Bill Adler. But Casper argued heatedly into the phone that Bill didn't understand the youthful, crazy aesthetic of the film. Ava stared out at the passing wind turbines and sand dunes, trying to feel something, even anger, but only stark waves of nothingness washed over her, as empty and hollow as the barren landscape flitting by, as she numbly listened to Casper argue with Olga Trogulova, the Russian oligarch who controlled the film's financing. Olga had started out in the early 2000s selling used clothing from Germany out of her Moscow apartment, but she'd grown it into the biggest online clothing brand in Russia, called Polka Dots, before branching out into the media sector. Sergei, her husband, managed their film fund under her watchful eye. Ava was also vaguely aware of an argument developing between Margot and Sam, about Sam shaping his hand into a gun and pointing it at her. "I didn't," Sam protested, his voice climbing into a high-pitched falsetto that betrayed his insincerity. "I was pointing it at you to say I love you, that the love is overflowing from me to you." "Liar," Margot shot back. "Guys," Ava whispered harshly, twisting around in her seat, glaring at them. "Papa's on a call. Quiet." Sam pointed his finger gun at the back of Casper's head. Margot suppressed a laugh. He imitated a hail of bullets shooting from his finger and then blew smoke off the imaginary gun barrel. The dog Coco made whining noises from the last row, pawing at the kids' headrests, trying to climb over. Margot twisted around to hug Coco, wrapping her arms around her brown, furry neck. "It's okay, Coco. Don't worry." The camping trip to Joshua Tree was meant to celebrate Sam's 10th birthday, a promise made months ago, but that was before Escape from Babylon, before Casper's life vanished into an idea, as though he'd joined an obscure cult in the service of producing an indie action movie dripping in 1980s nostalgia mingled with the world of late antiquity. It was about a down-on-his-luck guy who has just lost his job working at a Blockbuster. While living in his mom's basement, he grows addicted to the time-traveling world of a video game that becomes real. On his hero's journey within the video game, a series of obstacles are presented to him, in which he must overcome various villains to save a Macedonian princess, who looks a lot like his high school sweetheart, from marrying a tyrannical Roman emperor with cannibalistic tendencies, think Nero. At one point, he mistakenly travels too far back in time and encounters woolly mammoths, Thor, and velociraptors, before Alexander the Great makes a guest appearance and course-corrects time. Along the way, he meets his greatest rival, a Chinese kung fu master, who eventually becomes his best friend, a relationship complicated by the homoerotic tension simmering between them. In one of the main action sequences, the kung fu master's head gets blown off by a teenage werewolf, but in the next scene, his head is back on and everything returns to normal. Casper explained that in the Escape from Babylon universe, the absence of all logic made complete sense. It was all happening so quickly she didn't have time to feel upset or to protest the fact that he was leaving in 2 days to begin pre-production in Sofia. It seemed like a bad joke to imagine her husband moving to Bulgaria for 6 months, but it was happening. And she knew how hard Casper had worked to produce his first movie, after years of toiling away in the mailroom to become a second assistant, and then finally the first assistant, fetching coffee and pastries for meetings he wasn't allowed into, reading scripts and giving notes, searching for the next big idea that might launch his career. One of his old bosses once threw a stapler at his head. Another one of his bosses used to call him in the middle of the night, demanding that Casper pick up his Viagra from the 24-hour pharmacy. Plus, he was a young foreigner in the United States. He was the son of Montenegrins who had immigrated to Sweden in the 60s. He had moved to the States for college on a student visa, and then had relied upon his employers for work visas, his status unsteady and temporary, until he got a green card after marrying Ava. When he joined a Swedish film company to head up U.S. production a few years ago, his boss, a highly attractive triathlete, was humane and understanding. He meditated and wanted Casper to start meditating, offering to buy Casper a personal mantra, which Casper declined. He asked Casper about his kids, about the rest of his life, and treated him like a person. Casper didn't have night sweats or anxiety attacks anymore, and he believed that producing this movie confirmed he no longer languished in Hollywood's purgatory of creative executives and eternal development deals, that his livelihood no longer depended upon the tyrannical whims of the Hollywood bosses who had checkered his past, that he was finally creating something he believed in. And so, of course, Ava supported him, urged him even to go for it, suppressing the knowledge that, in exchange, she would have to sacrifice a lot, that his achievement would mean the diminishment of her own work and ambitions. But she had shoved down that internal chatter, believing this was what a good wife did. And she wanted to be seen as heroic and self-sacrificing, thinking she would get some kind of metaphorical gold medal for enduring the marathon of single motherhood for the next 6 months. And didn't she want him to succeed? To follow his dreams? Wasn't that what marriage meant? Today was Friday. Casper was leaving Sunday afternoon, 2 days from now. In a mad rush to keep his promise to Sam, they were still going camping, despite the looming separation that awaited, weighing on them. He had offered, out of guilt, given he was about to leave, that in Joshua Tree she should take some time for herself, to grade papers or ride or go on a hike. Whatever she needed, he would cover for her and look after the kids.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?